Hey everybody. Two things happened in the last couple of weeks that should all give you hope. Howdy folks, I'm Jeff Newton, former 60 Minutes producer, former senior producer at National Geographic Television and Vice on HBO. So here's what's happened this last few days. Should give us all reasons to celebrate. Trump backpedaled on Greenland. When he saw the consequences, he bailed. World leaders had said he'd be militarily and economically challenged by all of Europe. At home, within his own party and Congress, people told him he may lose his presidency over the breakup of NATO. When he saw he was losing his grip on Minneapolis, he flinched as well, fired the fascist Greg Bovino and began backpedaling, all because massive demonstrations and the loss of two brave souls, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. So the lessons here are pretty clear. Resistance works on him, not because he's a swell guy who sees the errors of his ways, but because he sees a lot of money and power at risk. Substantial loss. The loss of power scares him the most, I think. The humiliation, because there's nothing a narcissist hates more than being humiliated. That said, he'll go right back to his tactics when he can, because the reset allows his base and those within the administration to reset the narrative. Do not let them. Remind them that what they're still doing is illegal. Remind them of the language they continue to use. Keep the pressure on. Trump called Alex Preddy a gunman. He wasn't any more of a gunman than the farmer in my local diner with a concealed carry permit is a gunman. Preddy was no more of a gunman than the deer hunter who was on my property a couple of months ago was a gunman. Stephen Miller labeled him as a, quote, would-be assassin. Media people need to start forcing Miller to answer this question. What proof do you have of this? Because you're smearing his good name, because people at the scene said he was going for donuts. Kristi Noem smeared him as a domestic terrorist. We need to ask Kristi Noem, what proof do you have of this? From his computer? From his social media feeds? Did you find a manifesto? Did you have a target list you found? Kash Patel, head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the most cautious of all American law enforcement agencies, suggested he was all of the above because he was simply carrying a gun. So, now that's the standard. So let's be clear. He wasn't at a rally or a protest. He was observing an ICE immigration action. His only weapon was his cell phone camera. And here's another question. Should we now start talking about the gun problem? Because up to now, only good guys with guns could take out bad guys with guns. You remember that? And if that's so, who are the good guys now? And who are the bad guys? And where were those thoughts? And prayers from all of our MAGA friends for the ICU nurse who treated American war veterans and whose colleagues called him kind man, who stood regularly for the rights of others. Here's another question for them all. In America, we're supposed to have the presumption of innocence until proof of a crime is submitted through thorough investigations. And when the person lives, they file criminal charges against them. Do the remarks from these U.S. leaders, if we want to call them that, mean we've formally abandoned that notion? Or is it now up to his friends and families to prove they weren't all these terrible things, domestic terrorists, would-be assassins, gunmen? Here's the final thought for the day. Some of the agents from Preddy's shooting have allegedly been put on administrative leave. To me, this is just a way to shield them from public view and to avoid charging them with crimes. The question I now have is, when does an apology come from Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Kash Patel? When does Donald Trump say he's sorry for saying this man was a gunman? Because you don't put guys on leave from ICE when they're doing everything right, do you? We all know Trump doesn't apologize for anything. Narcissists never do. But we can hold them all accountable. There have been way too many do-overs at this point. Now, to the question of how many ICE officers have died since 2024. Since U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement was created in 2003, a total of 29 officers have died in the line of duty, according to 2025 reports. A majority of these deaths, approximately 15, were attributed to COVID-19. Other causes include assaults, vehicular accidents, and illnesses. When we see these clowns on the streets, these ICE guys, many of them are wearing police badges on their military-grade flak vests. Their faces covered to conceal their identities, Kevlar special operations vests puffing out of their already inflated chests and egos. Kevlar helmets further conceal their faces from public scrutiny. It doesn't seem very police-like to me. Not like any police I've ever seen before. A common police motto, you see it all around the country: protect and serve. But in 2025, Trump's first year of his second term, 32 people died in ICE custody, making it the agency's deadliest year in more than 2 decades. So, while there is hope to be given for the last couple of weeks, with Greenland and Minnesota showing signs Trump's vulnerable to pushback, it's important to remember his private police, they still exist, and there's more work to be done. All right. We have a Substack page with free and paid subscriptions available. If you like what we do here, go find it from the Writer's Cabin. We'd love it if you showered us with your support on that platform. It allows us to continue this work and grow our audience so we can widen our influence on those decision makers that matter. You and me are members of Congress, even those within the White House who may be listening, considering how to escape the situation they now find themselves in. So, like, follow, and share. Constructive comments are always welcome. Thanks for listening, Misfits. See you next time.